Hello and welcome to Channel 51 News for Friday, August the 8th. We are going to cover a lot of ground as usual on this show, emanating out of Australia, but focused on news from local and around the world to work out what is exactly going on in the world today. And if you are watching or listening, you may be listening on Cafe Locked or WRMI Radio. You can also catch us on channel51.com.au each day, Monday to Friday. And look out, of course, for specialist interviews across the board. And there are many, many topics that we'll cover. And you can subscribe if you'd like to for free, or you can, of course, become a paid subscriber and access exclusive content and, of course, support independent media. And by this show, you should work out whether or not independent media is for you. Now, Australian news today will be focused on the economy. That's right, because it is all about putting together food on the table, making ends meet, and then working out if the Australian dream is in fact alive and well, or whether or not we should just depend on the government for our future. Meanwhile, we'll look at the deep state and discuss what is coming up. And of course, the old playbook's out again. It's all about fear. Meanwhile, the enemy of the deep state, the great nationalists, the Americans, MAGA, etc., they're all about solutions. They're all about justice, and they're all about peace. And of course, prosperity follows. So we'll get into all of that for you right now. And the first story of the day concerns Australia, where Mark Bouris has warned that the government is on the wrong track, with half of the working age dependent Australians already dependent on government as their main source of income. Compiled this report earlier for you. We'll play it for you right now, and we'll come back and see exactly where Albanese's government is. Right now in Australia, more than half of working age adults get their main source of income from the government. That includes income from public sector jobs, as well as from job seeker, family payments, disability support and more. According to the Australian Financial Review, we're at the highest level of dependency since World War II. According to The Australian, 82% of all jobs created over the past 2 years were government-funded positions. In 2024, the private sector added just 53,000 jobs, while public employment surged at 5 times the normal rate. Economists are warning this is creating serious distortions in the labour market and driving Australia's ongoing productivity slump. But here's the worst part. To sustain this level of income support and public hiring, the government has to dramatically increase both taxes and spending, and that's what they've done. Total tax revenue hit a record $801 billion in 2023-24, or nearly 30% of GDP, the highest in modern history. Income tax alone is expected to rise above $343 billion by 25-26. That's a bigger tax burden on individuals and businesses than we've seen in decades. But it hasn't just been funded through tax. Over the past decade, the Reserve Bank and the government have massively expanded the money supply. Australia's M3 broad money measure, essentially the total pool of cash in the system, has grown to more than $3.15 trillion, up 80% since 2025. The shape of the job market is shifting dramatically. That's more money in the economy, chasing the same supply of goods, housing and services. And that's exactly what causes inflation. We're seeing that play out in everyday prices, at the supermarket, in energy bills, and most of all in housing. Government overspending has helped weaken the Australian dollar. That makes imported goods and building materials more expensive, driving up construction costs. Meanwhile, inflation has pushed investors toward property as a store of value, sending demand and prices even higher. So while the government talks about affordability, its own policies are fueling the very forces that make housing less affordable, and the pressure isn't just on prices, it's on productivity. To help keep the machine running, the government is taxing more, especially on income, savings and investment, but high taxes make it harder for people to start a business, grow one, or take financial risks. The result? Investment slows, innovation stalls, businesses hesitate, and Australia's ability to actually produce more to meet all of this demand keeps falling behind. That's when inflation really sticks, when demand is pumped up by public spending, but supply can't keep up. Prices rise faster and stay higher. According to former Treasury Secretary Ken Henry, Australia's poor productivity performance has cost the average worker around $500,000 in lost income over the past 25 years, and the Centre for Independent Studies puts it plainly. Australia's prosperity depends on private sector-led growth, not government spending propping up demand.
But right now, that's exactly what we're doing. We're building an economy on dependence, not on productivity. We're growing jobs in government, not in business. We're taxing more, but getting less. And we're printing money instead of creating value. This isn't just about budgets or ideology anymore.
Was put more strain on government when people retire, because people are not going to retire with enough money because they're going to be paying too much tax. And the people who are going to be affected by that most is anyone starting work today, any young person. So if you're a young person now, you're saying, oh, this is great because the rich people to transfer the wealth across to the younger people. You will be transferring it to your kids, and it's going to keep going like that forever. And this $3 million at some period of time will be worth like $100,000's worth today.
Now, we might feel like we are isolated, but when you've got Mark Bouris talking virtually for you and explaining to you that your kids are the ones that are going to be let down, you have to realize that there will be different reasons why people will start to see things the way that you have for reasons that you never expected. And like we showed on this show last week with Michael Arbon, and he came on, he was working for Senator Ralph Babet, and he was able to bring the Greens together and the Libs together when it came to overreach of the government. So it stands to reason that there'll be other reasons that you can bring your so-called political enemies together. And there will be always one way where you get to where politics is always played, 51 to 49. Now, there'll be many reasons why the Greens don't agree with us. So I'm going to show you one in a minute, but that doesn't matter. The point is we fight on issues and we work together to defeat the government, which is not serving us. And that's the point of being in opposition. So Anthony Albanese has reined in expectations about tax reform proposals. Now, we've just heard that the idea is that Albanese is going to have to put taxes up. And yet here he's talking about this new key economic summit. Now, the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, will convey the 3-day economic reform roundtable at Parliament House from the 19th of August, prompting a slew of proposals to the government for changes to the GST, capital gains tax and super. Albanese said on Thursday, though, any new proposals would only be considered after the next election due by May 2028. Governments make government policy, he said. The only tax policy that we're implementing is the one that we took to the election. Labor will legislate top-up income tax cuts announced in the March budget and is chasing a deal with the Greens to wind back tax concessions for superannuation accounts with balances of $3 million or more. So he wants to run this cycle on promises from before. He wants to hold a summit to pay lip service to the idea of what will be very negatively received responses because they're going to come from left-wing or Labor-backed organisations such as the trade union movement. So what I want to do now is I want to show you why he's stalling. So let me put up some graphics for you on the screen right now. So here's the first one I want to show to you. These are the proposals that will be put forward at the economic summit that Treasurer Chalmers will be holding. So one, they're going to obviously legislate the income tax as promised. Now, that's a good thing. I'll show you those tax cuts in a minute. Then he wants to wind back concessions of superannuation accounts with balances above $3 million. That means he wants to charge double the tax. The Greens, however, they want to go further and drop it to $2 million before the double tax comes in. Meanwhile, the Australian Council of Trade Unions wants to wind back negative gearing and capital gains concessions. So in other words, they want you to pay more tax, not less. And the Australian Council of Social Services wants to halve the CGT discount. So currently you get a discount on your capital gains tax when you sell a property. Well, they want to remove that. Meanwhile, they also want a 15% tax on superannuation. They want a Commonwealth royalty payment on offshore gas. Well, that's actually not a bad move if you can get it right. And Kate Cheney, the Teal, well, she wants to lift the GST from 10% to 15%. Meanwhile, these are your tax cuts that are slated if they are passed, which they should be, for 26 and 27. They will further reduce the marginal rate of tax from $18,200 to $45,000 from 16% to 15%, and other tax rates will stay the same. What that equates to is a whopping $5.15 extra in your pay packet. Now, whilst no one's going to sneeze at $260 a year, The point is that if you're going to remove negative gearing incentives, you're going to take away the capital gains tax rebate or halving of what it is, that concession there, and you're going to increase tax on super and lower the thresholds, etc., $5 doesn't go very far, does it? And so what it's doing is it's appeasing the very, very poorest in the economy by giving them a tiny little bit that's not going to make an iota of difference when they are fueling inflation. So they're pretending to pay service to those that are worse off by taking from the rich, and all that does is creates a layer of communism and a layer of resentment. Well, let's move on now, because that is probably the most depressing part of the news today coming out of Australia. But we're going to head now to the possibility, we're now hearing of a summit in the United Arab Emirates hosted by Trump and featuring Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelensky. Let me take you to that report right now.
Ending the Ukraine-Russia war. A meeting between Trump and Putin could happen at any day. And senior White House officials say Zelensky may be in the mix. Trump says he'll do whatever it takes to bring peace.
President Putin said this morning he was pretty dismissive of this idea of meeting with President Zelensky. President Putin was.
I don't know. I didn't hear him.
For you to meet with him, he doesn't have to agree to meet with Zelensky. Is that what you're saying?
No, he doesn't. No.
So when do you think that meeting?
They would like to meet with me, and I'll do whatever I can to stop the killing. So last month, they lost 14,000 people killed last month. Every week is 4,000 or 5,000 people. So I don't like long waits. I think it's a shame.
Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy is here. What are we hearing, Peter, about this big meeting?
Jesse, as I walked around the West Wing at different points today, pretty much everybody that I talked to seemed really optimistic that this is something that might actually happen next week. Sometimes with these stories, like yesterday, there's a sensational headline that broke in the New York Times at first, that there could be a meeting in a week. And then once the dust settles, people decide, maybe we need a little bit more time. That is not the case with this, even though, as we understand it, none of the complicated logistical or diplomatic or security advance work has been done yet. That is something that the Secret Service and the State Department would usually want to have a couple weeks at least to do. That is not happening. We know that Vladimir Putin said that he would like this meeting to happen in the United Arab Emirates. We don't have any reason to think that that is where it's going to be. That might just be where he wants it to be. If you ask Trump, he would probably say he wants it to be at Trump Doral. And maybe that's more likely because the United States is the third party here. The president is the one who's trying to end the war. And I remember we were there in Switzerland the last time that a U.S. president met in person with Vladimir Putin. It was Joe Biden. Part of that meeting was just kind of to not directly tell him not to go into Ukraine, but to let him know that there would be severe consequences. Putin did not listen. That is why Donald Trump blames Joe Biden for this war starting, and now he is going to try to end it. Nothing that he has tried so far has worked. And I just, as we were coming to air, texted a senior administration official just asking, what is the latest? I was told Marco Rubio and his team at NSC are working on this right now, and that the White House is working through the details of potential meetings, and they will be provided at the appropriate time, which, if we're going somewhere in the world next week, is probably really soon. Jesse.
All right. That's great news. Positive developments. Thanks so much for the update, Peter.
They are certainly positive developments if we can get to a solution for the Russia-Ukraine war, and of course the same with Israel and Gaza. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu has once again tried to explain that what he's trying to do is liberate Gazans via occupation. Doesn't seem to be making too many friends, but there is always two sides to every story, and you can never bow to terrorism. And he claims that there are Gazans who are asking for help to break away from Hamas and the terrorist regime. Meantime, Pam Bondi has dropped a mega bomb on Nicolas Maduro, accusing him of being a drug runner. Let me play you the clip and what the plan is.
Today, the Department of Justice and State Department are announcing a historic $50 million reward for information leading to the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. Maduro uses foreign terrorist organizations like TDA, Sinaloa, and Cartel of the Suns to bring deadly drugs and violence into our country. To date, the DEA has seized 30 tons of cocaine linked to Maduro and his associates, with nearly 7 tons linked to Maduro himself, which represents a primary source of income for the deadly cartels based in Venezuela and Mexico. Cocaine is often laced with fentanyl, resulting in the loss and destruction of countless American lives. The DOJ has seized over $700 million of Maduro-linked assets, including 2 private jets, 9 vehicles, and more. Yet Maduro's reign of terror continues. He is one of the largest narco traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security. Therefore, we've doubled his reward to $50 million. Under President Trump's leadership, Maduro will not escape justice, and he will be held accountable for his despicable crimes. If you have any information to bring this criminal to justice, call 1-202-307-4228 or go online.
Wow, there you go. She is fighting with all tooth and nail there. And there will be justice somewhere this year. That is without question. Of course, many people doubting, and they'll believe it when they see it, as will I. But I'll tell you what, you can't make moves like we're seeing and nothing happen. Meanwhile, in Texas, there's been a lot said this week about these particular Democrat governors who have, politicians, who have abandoned the state parliament, if you will, and have vanished because they didn't want to take part in what they considered to be a form of gerrymandering. Well, it's escalated and escalated throughout the week, resulting here in Attorney General Ken Paxton launching an investigation into the Soros-funded PAC. That's right, George Soros, for unlawfully funding runaway Democrat legislators. So Paxton's launched an investigation into the Texas Majority PAC, a radical political action committee bankrolled by billionaire George Soros, for its role in potentially unlawful financial coordination and bribery of Democratic legislators who fled Texas to break quorum. Texas Majority PAC was founded by former staffers of failed gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke. With a large radical donor base, the PAC is largely funded by billionaire George Soros. Well, I'll tell you what, that is a huge deal. George Soros was also mentioned in relation to the origins of Russiagate. Meantime, there is Doc Pete Chambers. He says he's running for governor of Texas, and he will call for a moratorium via executive order on all mRNA-containing products. Thus far, this medical technology has not been found to be safe nor effective, and the purported use of said products can be achieved by lesser intrusive means, period. I testified to this in a landmark case, Seals versus DOD, Liberty Counsel's case in a federal court. Well, speaking of gerrymandering, Stephen Miller, who is always punching above his weight, he came out full force fighting against Democrats' own gerrymandering.
Chicago, New York, Massachusetts. Democrats have gerrymandered the vote beyond recognition to try to maintain their advantage in the House elections. On top of that, let's not forget, Democrats rigged the 2020 census by including illegal aliens. Remember, they sued Donald Trump. They sued the administration. They fought tooth and nail to include illegal aliens in the census. 20 to 30 of House Democrat seats wouldn't exist but for illegal aliens. Texas is taking just a small corrective step against this ocean of fraud, this ocean of abuse by the corrupt Democrat Party, Sean.
Massive developments, of course. And meanwhile, Superman, Dean Cain, he's got a new job. He's going to become part of ICE.
Superman himself, Dean Cain, joins me now. All right, so this is kind of a big deal for you and your career. What are you going to be doing at ICE?
Well, let me go back a minute here, Jesse. This is all your fault, by the way.
Yeah?
I'll explain why.
Why?
Because I put out a recruitment video yesterday. I'm actually a deputy sheriff, a sworn deputy sheriff, and a reserve police officer. I wasn't part of ICE. But once I put that out there and you put a little blurb on your show, it went crazy. So now I've spoken with some officials over at ICE, and I will be sworn in as an ICE agent ASAP. So they'll have 80,001 recruits for their 10,000 positions.
Well, they can't have a better guy than Dean Cain. Are you going to be hopping out of ICE vans and apprehending guys?
I will do whatever Director Lyons wants me to do. If that's what it takes, absolutely. I somehow doubt I'll be in that position, but I would be there in a heartbeat. These brave men and women need someone to stand up for them. So rarely, these days are we seeing that. Someone like Daniel Penny stands up, he gets vilified. Dan Bongino steps up, gives up $5 million a year, and goes and takes his position at the FBI. This is the kind of thing where people have to step up. I'm stepping up. Hopefully, a whole bunch of other former officers, former ICE agents will step up, and we'll meet those recruitment goals immediately, and we'll help protect this country.
There you go. Tell you what, that is patriotism put to full test. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi, she's gone the other way. She's talking about gender affirming care and trying to federalise it. I don't know how she's going to pull this one off with absolutely no majority. Take a look.
How's your office responding to the pauses in gender affirming care here in California?
Well, that is something that I'm working for at the national level, and we have, how can I say, are hoping that we can have gender affirming care for our trans kids, and that it's a sad thing for us. I'm not totally. I don't know what effect we can have nationally with what we have going on in the White House and in the Congress. It's really very sad. If you were there, outside our door, we have a trans flag. Outside of our door in the office, congressional office building, we have the trans flag, as do some of our other colleagues. But that view is not necessarily shared by people on the other side of the aisle.
No, it's not. And there is, of course, massive argument, massive debate, but it's been the monopoly of ideas and power that's forced people. And finally, out of the US, there is a resistance and people can stand up for things. And part of that is also to then release good fortune upon the people. One of the things that Trump wanted to do was to bring manufacturing back to the United States, and he was mocked because it wouldn't be possible. They said, Apple, biggest company in the world, well, no, they could never bring it back to the US. Well, lo and behold, the Panicans were wrong again.
The Panicans said it couldn't be done. Apple had to use cheap foreign labor. They were wrong. They said these billion-dollar pledges were just announcements to curry favor with Trump. They were wrong. They've been wrong about everything.
I watched this group of people on CNN and MSDNC too, the same thing, where they say, well, costs have gone up. Costs haven't gone up, they've gone down. I'm telling you, the thing that's gone up is stock prices and success of our country.
Now for a much harder deal, Russia.
We had some very good talks with President Putin today. There's a good chance that there will be a meeting very soon.
Well, how about that? Now, there's been talk of and reports of a new mosquito-borne virus into China. It feels like the deep state are going back to their same old. And if there was to be some form of international panic at this point, and Australia being part of this WHO-IHR, I just wonder how many people would actually just put their hands up and say, no, thank you. Now, there was two clips I want to show you, but I'm going to show you the second one because this is Laura Ingram. She's had enough, and let's test her mettle.
Dr. Siegel, now we're seeing clouds of disinfectant being sprayed. Infected people are being holed up in hospitals for a week at a time. Tell us about this, because I don't trust the Chinese on viruses at all.
No, I don't trust the news, but I'll tell you, it sounds like sci-fi, and China too. It sounds like the same thing with COVID. They're spraying people as they enter the city with insect repellent. They're coming to people's homes reportedly in red vests and looking for still water where mosquitoes may breed. They've got drones that are going around the city looking for still water where mosquitoes may breed. They're taking people who are sick with chikungunya, which is the name of the virus that comes from mosquitoes, and they're sticking them in hospitals and locking them down with mosquito netting around. And this is all going to export viruses, because they are not going to control this virus, and fear, which they did last time. And somehow, Laura, the notion if you use these draconian measures and take away people's liberty, it actually controls a virus. That was something we should have learned doesn't work with COVID.
There you go. We know, and there is a new level of resistance. And of course, we're seeing more and more people winning court cases against mandates, especially in the United States. There was a big case this week where things have been turned over, people, of course, being reinstated. So the idea that you can do that again is going to be a lot harder this time, plus the fact that the different people are in power. Now, we saw this week that that one of the fellows who was involved in Doge was attacked in the street. It led President Trump to come out and say that he may even have to consider federalizing law enforcement in Washington, D.C., given the amount of attacks that are going on. I want to put this post up by Clandestine, and then I'm going to show you why I've put up this post. And then we're going to get to your say, that is viewers of this show who have sent in their comments. So here he is, Clandestine. He says, hear me out. Trump is hinting that he wants to use the National Guard to stop the crime in D.C. and secure the capital. This comes at the same time that he is investigating the deep state cabal and a grand jury is being impaneled. What if those two things are connected? If Trump is actually going to follow through on high-profile arrests, he's going to need to control D.C. He will need complete security to pull off arrests. Military presence would give him the ability to mask movement of high-profile targets, and he will need the National Guard in place preemptively to shut down any riots or uprisings, because the public will likely be outraged if certain high-profile individuals are arrested. If there is going to be a corruption purge here in the US, similar to the one in Saudi Arabia in 2017, Trump taking federal military control over DC would be necessary. Well, meanwhile, this one's popped up as well. Brendan Carr, today the FCC voted to launch a top-to-bottom review of the emergency alert system and the wireless emergency alert program. We want to ensure that these programs deliver the results that Americans want and need. Now, this is what somebody pointed out with an eagle eye. It was put up at 4:18 p.m. So what did they do? They went to 4:18 on the Q board and saw this. Test. Q. Test. How about that? A top to bottom review of the emergency test system. Let's see what happens there. If you want to join that together, I find that very, very interesting. Well, meanwhile, let's get now to what is your say. Yesterday, we covered a very interesting story about a young female primary school teacher who reported being bashed in a classroom, ribs broken, and suffering sexual harassment from primary school kids, to which she explained in gory detail, if you will, with a supposed G-rated attached to it, but you all got what was going on. And what I've had is some comments on the Substack page. I thought I'd share them because this is your say. So Sid wrote, equal out the numbers of male to female teachers. I was a specialist teacher behaviour. I worked across all systems and in the Hunter, in the public system. Many times the only male in the school grounds was the general assistant. Often children would gather around these men. Wake up, people. Demand male teachers on balance with the females. After 28 years, I left over convert. Boys' education was destroyed and the system feminised. Boys need role models. There you go. Also, Jack, New South Wales, said, kids teaching kids. Next generation has no hope in hell being discerning, respectful, reliable in communities or independent adults. The government education system has been very hard at work in indoctrinating several Australian generations, and I do not need to twist my hair whilst writing this reply. And Jody writes, a terrible incident for this young teacher. Oh, but so propagandised by using the term unalive for a dead bird. If I was having kids now, I would never send them to these institutions called schools, nothing more than mind control centres. Homeschooling is the future for critical thinking parents. Your kids will thank you. And Zolly writes, the saddest part is that while she was being attacked, she said that she couldn't defend herself. The implication being accused of violence against a child. Lucky the little, you know what, didn't come up against me. When my girls were being harassed by an older boy at school, I confronted him in a passageway and told him in no uncertain terms what I would do if he approached either child again. It was just as new regulations were being introduced to the school to have parent-teacher discussions about any student issues arising in the school needing to go through the proper channels. School term finished without further incidents. Interesting, isn't it, what people have got to say on the school teacher story? And also, Judy made a contribution. She said, hey, Jason, I have had posts taken down by Meta. This was in response to the story about the lady whose meta was taken down when she was advertising her business based on false pretenses that matched mine. So she said, many times now I've opened up my Facebook page each day. There's a big exclamation mark and a notice saying that my account has some issues and to be careful. Going against the rules too many times can cause restrictions on your account. During the first year of COVID, I was locked out of my account for 30 days, 8 times in 1 year. They do not like the truth getting out. At the moment, there are 47 claims of either nudity, article about child sex trafficking, spam, false information, partly false information, and all 47 have been removed or fact-checked. Love, Judy. And she is, in fact, number 7 on the founding members. Thanks, Judy, and thank you all for your contributions. They are amazing, well thought of. Thanks for taking the time out to do it, and it makes the contribution that this will grow and grow and grow. I had a phone call today from Michael from Cafe Lockdown thanking me for the contribution to that network, and we've decided to move it to the 6 o'clock news instead of 6:30 going forward from tonight and onwards. And I'm told that the feedback is wonderful as we are creating the only true independent news bulletin out there, possibly in Australia, maybe around the world, that covers all of the issues today, providing the necessary perspective and the introduction of interactivity, just the way that you saw there, and we will continue to expand. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe at channel51.com.au, and if you'd like to be a supporter of independent media, you can subscribe and access the wonderful benefits that you will get for supporting me here and the growing team, with announcements to come very soon. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all next week. Take care, and come on, we are going to get better and better and better. No one's holding us back anymore.